Hello everyone. Hope all of you are doing great. So welcome all. It's been quite a long time I made a video. I was busy with some projects going on. Okay, so in this video, what we're going to look at unspent transaction output. Okay, so what is unspent transaction output? Unspent transaction output model is used in Bitcoin. Okay, so in other like platforms like Ethereum, they use a different transaction model. So we'll focus on mostly about Bitcoin transaction model. When it comes to Ethereum video, we will look at Ethereum transaction model. Okay. So first of all, before understanding what happens with Bitcoin transaction, I would like to understand. I'd like to explain you what happens. With a bank transaction. Okay. So here, what I've taken is I've taken two banks, Bank A and Bank B. So Bank A, say Tom has an account, and Bank B, Alice has an account. Tom has $10,000, and Alice has nothing. Okay. So here, what happens? Tom is trying to send $2,000 to Alice. Okay. So this is the $2,000. What happens once Tom initiates this transaction? Okay. Bank A deducts $2,000 amount from Tom's account. Then Bank B deposits or credits $2,000 to Alice's account. Okay, and settlement between the bank happens behind the scenes. Okay, so what happens sometimes in some scenarios, it is all through weekend process, and sometimes overnight jobs runs, and settlement or reconciliation happens. Okay, let's see what happens in Bitcoin. Okay, so in Bitcoin world, so here what example, in this example, what I've taken is Tom, Alice. So Tom has an address 0x123, and Alice address is 0x456. Tom has 5 bitcoins, Alice has 0 bitcoins. She doesn't own anything. So here, Tom, what Tom is trying to do is Tom is trying to send 2 bitcoins to Alice. Okay. So this is nothing but a transaction, like how you send from one bank to another bank. The previous example what we have seen is $2,000, right? So similarly here, Tom tries to send 2 bitcoins to Alice. Okay. So in this case, what happens in Bitcoin world is, in Bitcoin world, okay, how much is the input? 5 bitcoins. Okay. What is the output which is which is planned to send? 2 bitcoins. Okay. So there is a reminder 3 bitcoins, right? Okay, you see 2 bitcoins are sent to Alice, and Tom's remaining balance has to be 3 bitcoins. In the banking world, what happens is bank deducted that amounts, right, and changes it to 3 bitcoins. Here, what happens in Bitcoin world is the protocol. What the protocol or the Bitcoin core software, what it does is the remaining amount would be sent back to Tom himself. Okay, so 2 BTC goes to Alice, and what is the remaining? Remaining is the 3 BTC or Bitcoin, which goes as a change to Tom himself. Okay, so this, the protocol or the software take cares of it. Okay, so this is how the software works, the protocol works. Okay, so now let's look at in detail about these inputs and outputs. So before that, what I would like to show is I'll just show you what is the structure of a transaction. When you open your wallet, send some 2 bitcoins to anybody. Okay, and when you hit send button, what happens behind the scenes is a transaction gets initiated. Okay, and in this transaction, what are the details? Okay, what are the details this transaction contains? Okay, it contains a version number. So what is the software version which you are using? Input counter. So this I'll explain. Okay, input counter, inputs, outputs, and timestamp. Okay, timestamp is nothing but at what time you have initiated the transaction. Okay, so all those details goes in as part of a transaction. Now let's closely look at what are these inputs and outputs. Okay, so here so Tom has 5 bitcoins, and his address is 0x123. This is fine. Okay, now how Tom has received this 5 bitcoins? Okay, so in the typical banking world, what happens is see here, what we have seen is Tom has $10,000, right? So somebody might have transferred to Tom. So that is how you always, when you open your account, all you see is $10,000. And this $10,000 bank A would have will have some DB database, and you pull that amount. Okay, it is Tom is looking for his balance, so the respective account number details would be displayed in the web. Okay, so that is how you know your balance. Okay, so whereas in Bitcoin world, what happens is, okay, so for every address there will be corresponding inputs, okay, in the blockchain. Okay, so this is stored in something called UTXO. Okay, so for example, here what happens is, this 5 bitcoins how Tom has received is, let's take, A person has sent 2 bitcoins, B has sent 1 bitcoin, similarly C 1.5 and D 0.5. Okay, all together, summing up all these becomes 5 bitcoins. Okay, so when Tom opens his wallet, okay, he enters his password. When it opens his wallet, okay, these inputs, okay, these are nothing but transaction inputs, unspent transaction inputs. These would be calculated, okay, summed up together, and that is how the balance would be shown in the wallet. Okay, fine. Okay, so these are inputs. Now, inputs. The next what I want you to understand is outputs. Okay, so inputs would be locked. Okay, so this one we'll see in the next slide. Fine. So here what happens is 5 bitcoins, and Tom is trying to send to Alice. Here you see, this is a typo. This has to be 2 bitcoins. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have, from the previous slide we have seen that how Tom has got this bitcoins, okay, from 4 different persons. Okay, so that is how he has got this bitcoins. Okay, 5 bitcoins. Okay, now when Tom decides that he has to send 2 bitcoins to Alice, then what happens? It has to be from any of these inputs. Okay, so he'll have to take these say 2 bitcoins. Okay, and then unlock the inputs. It's nothing but your input, right? You are trying to spend, so you have taken this input and you are locking the output. Nothing but you are trying to spend this amount. 2 bitcoins are trying to spend. So this is locked. Okay, and the remaining 3, we know the remaining 3 bitcoins will be sent to Tom himself. Okay, so this input is unlocked, and then it is locked. Okay, and then finally it goes to Alice as a, that goes in the transaction. Okay, so this is nothing but the unspent transaction output model. So this is how it works. Okay, always you unlock the inputs, and then lock the output, like whatever amount which is which we are trying to spend, and then it goes to Alice. In this case it goes to Alice. Okay, so that is what, if you look at the transaction structure of a transaction, now we can understand this. Okay, so there is a version number, that's fine. Input counter. Okay, so how many inputs are you using to send this transaction? Maybe 1 or 2. Say suppose you're trying to send 3 bitcoins. Maybe then the input counter would be 2 plus 1. Okay, so input counter, the inputs. Tom has to prove that he owns 5 bitcoins. So he'll have to send those. So he'll have to send those inputs. Then the output counter. So how many people is Tom trying to send? In this case, it's just Alice. Okay, 1. And the amount. What is the amount he is trying to send? And lock timestamp is nothing but at what time this transaction is getting recorded or initiated. Okay, so that is nothing but the lock timestamp. So with all these details, a transaction would be initiated. Okay, then after this there is a whole another process which happens. So this transaction goes from one node to node, it gets propagated. Then the miner takes these transaction, verifies whether Tom has received this 5 bitcoins, or really has he having this 5 bitcoins, did he try to double spend it. So all these will be validated as part of mining. Okay, so a transaction, this is how it is initiated, and this is nothing but the unspent transaction output model. Okay, so where do I find this unspent transaction output? So one suggestion is, like what I have done is, when you try to download and install this Bitcoin Core wallet, okay, when you download this and then you open it, what you can find is, you can find this upgrading UTXO database. Okay, so you can see something like it takes a while. Once done, and if you want to go look this UTXO database where it is stored. So probably you can copy this. Okay, so this is where you can see the unspent transaction output model. Okay, so these are where the details you've got. Okay, so this is nothing but all the unspent transaction inputs. So this DB, right? So it is all stored here. Okay, you can see record locking information. Okay, fine guys. So this is about it. And if you look at Ethereum and other platforms, they don't use unspent transaction output model. So it is account-based model or state-based model. It's a different model. So we will look deeply into account-based model when we touch base Ethereum. Okay. For now, that's all I've got. Do let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. I would try to answer, as early as possible. Yes. Thank you all. Have a good day.